Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth, also known as the Continuum Chronicles. As always, I'm your host, Chris Kent, the Game Master, and today we're talking about my favorite thing of all time, the Transformers. But before we get into that, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell for notifications, and as always, be sure to leave us a comment, as that really helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. We've got a great community here, and it's all thanks to you guys. Thank you so much for being here. All that said, let's dive in. Prologue to today's story takes place in February of 1940, when Professor Martinson creates an earthquake machine. The device is used on the East Coast. For the first time in history, the city of Metropolis, Delaware, is ravaged by a terrible earthquake. Springing into action, Superman supports tottering buildings while terrified occupants dash to safety. His amazing speed brings him to wherever there is need of his assistance. Later, as mild-mannered reporter Clark Kent, he tells the chief that he's learned that the disturbance was caused by a new weapon the Army is testing, which artificially causes earthquakes. The machine ran wild during the test. He says he'll visit its inventor for an interview. And so, Clark Kent pays a visit to Professor Martinson, and when he turns his back on the professor, he's hit over the head and dumped out of the window to fall to his demise. But Martinson doesn't realize that Clark Kent can withstand such things. Once he changes into Superman, he heads back to the lab, but by the time he gets there, Martinson is gone. But there's a screen similar to a television here, and on it is Lex Luthor, the greatest criminal mastermind of all time. Luthor challenges Superman to various tests. He says that if Superman's muscles can surpass his scientific feats, then Luthor will admit defeat. But if Luthor can outdo the Man of Steel, then Superman will have to retire and leave Luthor a clear path. Superman accepts and rises to the various challenges. But it was a trick to keep Superman busy. While he was competing with Luthor, the villain's henchmen stole the earthquake machine. And of course, Luthor has no intentions of keeping his promise. Luthor takes the earthquake machine to the San Andreas fault line where he uses it there. The entire western coast of the United States is hit by seemingly countless natural disasters. It starts with earthquakes, but the shaking causes dams to burst, rock slides, etc. Striking such a weak point seems to cause no end of trouble. It even causes several volcanoes to erupt, which would not have happened otherwise. And that brings us to the main plot of today's game. One such volcano on America's western coast erupts, revealing the Ark, an enormous copper-colored starship that crashed into the side of the volcano 4 million years earlier. Within the ancient alien ship, a computer comes online for the first time in ages. Within the ship, a small device opens up and a drone satellite called Sky Spy flies up and out of the volcano. As it flies, it says, "Explore, explore." It glides around the Earth, examining various vehicles. While over Axis territory, it scans some enemy aircraft. These schematics are transmitted back to the ship's computer, which then says, "Repair, repair." A small box-shaped gadget atop a robotic armature rises, then fires a yellowish-colored beam of light at a black and purple robot laying on the floor. The robot, whose name is Skywarp, is repaired in such a way that he can now transform into a World War II fighter plane. Skywarp then drags his leader, Megatron, into the path of the beam. Once Megatron is repaired and given an Earth mode, Skywarp helps him up. "Megatron, my leader, we are alive again." Megatron gestures to their fallen comrades and says, "Quickly, we must revive the other Decepticons." One by one, they are drug into the beam, and one by one, they are repaired and reformatted. By the time the process is complete, the earthquakes and various natural disasters have ceased. The Decepticons fly outside, where they land on top of a cliff and have a look around. Megatron says, "Much time has passed. We're on a planet far from Cybertron, but our mission has not changed." Skywarp asks how they even know Cybertron still exists. Megatron says, it must exist. And if this land is filled with resources, then we shall return home with the power to build the ultimate weapon and conquer the universe. As the Decepticons leave, Starscream fires his guns at the Autobot starship as his way of saying goodbye. Within the ship, the body of Optimus Prime falls into the repair beam. Having made a full orbit of the Earth, Sky Spy is over America once more. As it passes over a city, it says, explore, explore. Then it scans a truck. The blueprints for this make and model are displayed on the view screen of the ship's computer, and Optimus Prime is repaired and reformatted into a vehicle appropriate to this time period. Meanwhile, the Decepticons find a section of desert suitable for their needs. Megatron says they'll set up here. He orders Soundwave to prepare plans for a new space cruiser. He tells Starscream to convert the area for construction. Starscream asks what he's supposed to use for materials, and Megatron growls at him to use his imagination. Meanwhile, back at the Autobot starship known as the Ark, Optimus Prime addresses his newly repaired and rebuilt soldiers. This planet is rich with sources of energy, he says, but the Decepticons must know this too, so we must find them and stop them. Hound? Optimus says in a commanding voice. Right here, Prime, Hound replies calmly. Scout the area. See if you can locate the Decepticons. Just turn me loose, Prime. I'll sniff them out, Hound says confidently. I'm going too, Cliffjumper says in his usual hot-headed tone of voice. I want to boot some Decepticon right in his turbocharger. Optimus gestures for him to take it easy. Easy, Cliffjumper. Just find him. We'll deal with him later, Optimus commands. And with that, Hound transforms into a green World War II American Jeep, while Cliffjumper transforms into a red 1933 Ford Coupe. They speed off into the desert. Sure is a lot different than Cybertron out here, Hound says. Don't fall in love with it, Hound. We won't be staying that long. They drive to a cliff, and when they look out into the distance, they see where the Decepticons are basically assimilating a section of the desert. They've raided various Earth locations, pilfering what bits of metal they could find. The Decepticons are rapidly building a new starship that they hope to use to return to Cybertron. Then Hound uses the self-manipulation power to make a little door open on his arm, and a small satellite dish-shaped device pops out. He subs this for extended hearing, allowing he and Cliffjumper to hear what the Decepticons are talking about. As the Decepticons outline their plans, Cliffjumper sets up a massive cannon on a tripod and has Megatron in his viewfinder. He takes the shot. It's Cliffjumper's weaponry skill of 5 APs versus Megatron's dexterity of 4 APs. So Cliffjumper only needs to roll a 9 or better on 2d10. And in our game, he does. He makes it. Cliffjumper's gun has an effect value of 14 APs, while Megatron's body is 16. Normally, he wouldn't take any damage, but because Cliffjumper rolled a 13, that gives him 1 extra column shift on the damage table, which in this case means Megatron takes 3 points of damage. The fiercely loyal Decepticon known as Soundwave activates Laserbeak, who transforms into a robotic condor. Laserbeak streaks towards Cliffjumper and Hound, so the two Autobots decide to retreat. As they are running away, Laserbeak multi-attacks them with a skill of 9. Cliffjumper's dex is 7, while Hound's dexterity is 5. So Laserbeak hits. And Laserbeak's guns have an effect value of 16 APs. So Laserbeak shoots Cliffjumper, taking his body from 8 down to -1. So Cliffjumper is knocked out from 1 shot, which Transformers, by the way, refer to as stasis lock. Laserbeak then shoots Hound, taking his body from 14 to 12. The unconscious cliff jumper, ironically, rolls off of a cliff in neutral, crashing onto the rocks below. He's alive, just hurt. Hound transforms, which, by the way, we treat as alter ego, and that's an automatic action. For his second automatic action, he picks up cliff jumper's gun, which does more damage than Hound's gun does. And for his dice action, Hound shoots Laserbeak. Hound's skill is 9 versus Laserbeak's dexterity of 8. The gun he's using has an effect value of 14 versus Laserbeak's body of 10. So Hound does 7 damage, and Laserbeak's body is 3 now. Since Laserbeak is hurt, and he only has a willpower of 4, Laserbeak chickens out and decides to retreat. Hound picks up Cliff Jumper and carries him back towards the Ark. Which brings us to our epilogue. Hoover Dam was completed in March of 1936. It is the largest in the Western Hemisphere. Hydroelectric power plant has a capacity of 1,750,000 kilowatts, and that makes it the perfect target for the Decepticons to strike. They go to Hoover Dam, and Soundwave activates Rumble, a small blue robot, who dives into the water and uses his pile drivers to create a tidal wave. As the Decepticons begin to overload the dam, the Autobots show up to stop them. The Autobots prevent the Decepticons from destroying Hoover Dam entirely, but there's a flood. Bumblebee and Ironhide use a laser to dig ditch-like trenches to divert the floodwaters away from homes. Hound fights Rumble, and atop the dam itself, Optimus Prime and Megatron fight. But when a young boy named Sparky Witwicky cries out for help, Optimus is distracted, and Megatron hits him with a glowing purple Energon mace. Optimus is knocked off of the dam, but Jazz uses self-manipulation to fire a grappling hook out of his forearm to save Prime. The Decepticons get away and select their next target. That's a story for another day. We really enjoyed playing this one. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about it. If so, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell for notifications, and as always, be sure to leave us a comment, as that really helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. Until next time, I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.